Hi, welcome to Round Robin. I'm Decia Scott, and I'm here in replace of Robin McCormick, who is on vacation this week. And I'm here with Bob Cosby with Newport News Waterworks, and he is going to talk about the Fort Monroe project that they are working on right now. So I'd like you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Bob Cosby. As I said, I work with Newport News Waterworks. I'm in our engineering group and our distribution system. And the project we'd like to talk to you about today is Fort Monroe, with the work that they're doing in the Phoebus area in Hampton.
Great. Well, Phoebus is a lovely area, and it's a little old. And so I know those pipes down there have been around, you told me, since the 1900s, right?
Yes. Some of the pipes in there are the original pipes that were installed when it was originally built. Okay. So they're getting a little bit of age on them and need of some replacement. So.
All right. So how did this all come about? I mean, what did Fort Monroe approach you all? Did you all approach Fort Monroe? How did that all come about?
Yeah, we've been talking actually with Fort Monroe for probably 20 years now on this project, which they have a master meter for their site, which is located at Old Buckrow Road in Mercury and connects into a 14-inch pipe down Mercury Boulevard that brings it out to Fort Monroe. That's also an older pipe built in the early 1900s. And starting to leak, so they wanted to not have to be replacing that pipe in Mercury anymore on a regular basis, and they wanted their meter closer to the base itself. So they wanted to move it. How do we accomplish that? So we've been working back and forth to determine what is best for Fort Monroe, as well as for Waterworks and the general Hampton area, to make sure we're doing what is best for all parties involved.
Right.
So over that period, we've drilled down and finally come to the solution here and are implementing the project at this time.
Okay, great. So when did the project start?
The current project started probably 3 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
On the design aspects. So we looked at it and we said, okay, we would like to do this. How do we do it? And we worked through the preliminary engineering process to determine what is the preferred solution.
All right.
Because there's always multiple options.
Of course. So how many people, is there a large number of people impacted down in Phoebus, or is it a minimum amount of people?
It impacts all of the Phoebus area, but direct impacts is, I believe it is 41 residences that we're replacing the water main directly in front of their home, as well as their individual services to their meters at their house.
Okay.
So direct impacts 41, but all of Phoebus has some improvements associated to it.
Okay, so when you were talking about the piping itself, you were talking about it had leaks. I mean, I think it's important to talk about why they were having leaks to understand why it needed to be replaced. I think we know when we have houses, it takes a bit of maintenance and that can get costly. But as you could tell us, it's going to take a lot of work to keep those things up. So why the replacement? What goes along with that?
Certainly. As far as the leaks, they're generally caused by the joints of the pipe. Our pipe comes in 20-foot lengths, and it pushes together with a bell and a pipe end. And within that, there is a gasket. At that time, they were using some other materials for it, and they just age out over time and start failing. Nowadays, we're using more of a rubber gasket, which tends to have a little bit longer life on it. So generally, joint leaks are most of our problems, where that material has just become old, worn out, the ground moves a little bit, and it starts pushing the water around it. So that's usually where the leaks occur, but anytime you have one, now you have to dig down, cut out the joint, and replace a small section of pipe. So it's very time-consuming and expensive, especially on 14-inch is a very odd size for a pipe. That was the normal size 100 years ago, but today 12 inches normal, 16 inches normal, 14 is very difficult to find parts for. So therefore, becomes more challenging to fix on a regular basis.
Would this also help with any kind of risk to contamination at all? Like if there was any rust in any of the piping that was there?
There is the existing pipe that's down there is in the early 1900s. We've used cast iron pipe, and now we use ductile iron pipe for a long time, but that water in contact with the iron has a potential to create rust, which then can fall into the water and then create a discoloration of the water to give it an orangish color. In about 1940, we went to putting a cement lining inside the pipe, and that protects the iron from the water and prevents that rust from occurring.
Right.
So that helps to reduce that potential, and therefore the newer pipes that are going in, we don't tend to have those rust issues. We've got that nice smooth cement lining in there that prevents anything else from occurring, it also keeps that pipe open and consistent in flow, where that rust before shrunk the size of the pipe because iron, as it rusts, expands.
I see.
And
what you're
therefore,
It'll
the
shrink it
inside of the
down.
pipe actually gets smaller over time.
So in time, theoretically, would it also, with this new project, it'll help increase the water pressure to some of the residents?
Yes, it will. Certainly for the residents that the services are being replaced.
Oh, okay.
If they've got one of those 3/4 inch galvanized iron services, they've had that issue of that rust is slowly reducing that flow potential. So when they go back in with the new copper service, that will prevent that from occurring into the future. For those residents that had a copper service before, they will probably see less impact because that does not tend to build that layer of material on the inside of it like the iron does.
Okay. And for the residents that would have anything replaced, is there any cost to them for any of those parts to be replaced? Oh, awesome. That's a win-win.
Yes.
So in the terms of the project itself, I remember you saying that it's a win-win-win. It's like a triple win for
Yes.
everything. Explain how that works for us.
Yeah, for this particular project, it's kind of a unique one that Fort Monroe is preparing this project for us, and they're doing these replacements at their cost. So Waterworks is getting our pipes replaced, which is we're getting about a half mile of pipe replaced in the Phoebus area at no cost to Waterworks and no cost to Waterworks ratepayers.
Great.
So we get new pipe. Our residents have new services and connections to their point at those areas. Fort Monroe gets improved flow onto the base, so they get what they're looking for out of it. And then the general residents of Hampton have an improved flow across the whole area. So we've got a win for Fort Monroe with them getting water. We've got a win for Waterworks with getting some of our pipe replaced that needed to be replaced anyway at no cost to us. And the residents get the win of they now have that pipe is done and they have improved water quality in their at their home.
Right, and they're upgraded from anything that was built in the 1920s as well.
Correct.
So if they do have any problems in that area, who should they call? Do they call 311? Do they call Newport News Waterworks? Is there a number?
There are 3 individuals that can be called. They can call 311 with Hampton. They have the information to then get in touch with Waterworks as well as with Fort Monroe. The Phoebus area has been notified throughout the process as well as to what's going on, so they have contacts as part of that notification through Fort Monroe. And then, of course, Waterworks, as we're working with the contractor to actually build the project, anytime the water is going to be shut off, we will be putting notices on doors that'll have information on there to contact our dispatch group so that we can determine if there are issues, we can get out and help solve them with the contractor on site.
Okay. And I know that I didn't quite ask this question initially, but if there was any impact to water services during this time, they will be notified previously before then, and if they have any problems, they would still call those numbers that you provided as well.
Anytime we're going to turn water off to a resident that's planned, we will notify the residents 2 days in advance.
Okay.
Particularly for a large shutoff, when we have to do transfers, we'll have to turn their water off for a short period while we do the transfer of the water main. And then when we actually transfer their service, we will notify them the day of that we're going to be turning your water off for an hour maybe to move from one service to the other to get you from the old pipe to the new.
All right. Well, it sounds like a great project. And like you said, it's a win for all residents, the developer, Fort Monroe, everybody involved. So it was great having you on the show. It was such a pleasure to meet you, Bob. Is there anything else that you wanted to tell the residents today?
Thank you for having us out. We're here to help out our residents, our ratepayers, to make sure everybody is getting the highest quality water that they can get. And we're constantly doing these programs throughout the city, of both Hampton, Newport News, as well as York and Poquoson, to make these improvements. And any time that we do have issues, if people can let us know, that is always helpful, because the people in the street are our eyes. They let us know when their problems are, and then we can take a look and see what we need to do to help fix them.
Well, having you come on the show is always a pleasure, making sure that our residents know to save and conserve water. And like you said, making sure to be your eyes for for the company is always a great thing. Thank you, Bob Cosby, for being on the show today. It was a pleasure having you. And thanks for joining Round Robin. We'll see you next time.